Hello, wandering soul. How are you this cold night? Where do these words reach you? Beneath the warmth of a blanket, or in the hush of a room where a single candle flickers? And what hour is it now, when the snow drifts endlessly outside, or when the streets lie silent, waiting for dawn? Tonight, we step beyond the comfort of hearth and home, not with sails, nor with songs of the sea, but with a tale of winter, of hunger, and of a little girl whose fragile hands hold the last light of hope. So hush the world around you, breathe gently, and listen. The snow is falling, the matches are trembling. The little match girl's story begins now. The last night of the year descended not with joy, but with silence as heavy as a coffin lid. Snow fell in coarse sheets, coating the cobblestones in a cruel white that blinded the eyes and gnawed at the skin. The bells of the church tolled in the distance, their iron throats groaning as if to summon the dead instead of the living. Behind every shuttered window burned fires of comfort, and behind every locked door, laughter spilled like spilled wine, thick and wasted. Yet in the street, among the frozen refuse and the footprints of strangers, wandered a child. She had no shoes, she had no hat. The rags on her back were threadbare scraps, hardly more than shadows, clinging to her skin. Her feet, once tender, were now mottled with sores, cut open by stone and ice. Each step left a trail of red stains upon the snow, so that she seemed to walk upon a path of blood. In her small fist, she clutched a bundle of matches, bound together by a frayed cord. They were not toys. They were her only lifeline, her only shield against a father who would demand coins, and who would raise his hand if none were brought home. She had called out to strangers earlier, timid whispers in the biting dark, but no one listened. Some pulled their coats tighter as if to ward off plague. Some hissed under their breath, "Beggar brat," and some simply stared ahead, unseeing, as though the child did not belong to the world of men. The night deepened. Wind howled between the crooked buildings, dragging with it the smell of iron and rot. Dogs slunk from alley to alley, yellow eyes glinting, following the dripping of her wounded feet. Once, one of them barked sharply, the sound echoing like a shot, and she startled, stumbling into the wall. The brick was colder than stone, biting at her shoulder. She thought of her father's face, the deep lines around his mouth, carved not by sorrow, but by bitterness. She thought of his fists, heavy with drink. She thought of the lash of his tongue, sharper than any winter wind. She dared not return without money, for to return empty-handed was to invite punishment. Better the claws of the frost than the blows of his hand. But her body was trembling now. Her breath came out in small clouds, vanishing as quickly as they were born. The matches weighed in her palm like a dying heart. She knew she must not waste them, for each stick meant one more chance to live, one more chance to bargain with the darkness. Yet, what was life without warmth, without even the whisper of comfort? Her knees buckled, and she sank into a corner where the shadows clung like funeral cloth. There, amid the refuse, she pressed the first match to the stone. A spark flared, catching, devouring the wood with hungry tongues of gold. And the wall before her changed. The flame licked upward, weak at first, then stretching tall, painting her hollow cheeks with a ghostly glow. Its warmth was a cruel reminder of all she had been denied. She cupped the match in her trembling hands, eyes wide, afraid to blink lest the light vanish into the endless night. The wall before her began to ripple, the way ice shifts under the weight of a thaw. The bricks seemed to soften, melting into a surface alive with light. From the flicker rose the shape of a hearth, black iron mouth yawning wide, spitting sparks. Logs cracked and split, spattering embers onto the stone floor. The scent of burning pine filled the air, sharp and heavy. For the first time that night, her body leaned forward, drinking in the warmth that was not there. She stretched her fingers toward it, fingers blue with cold, skin split at the knuckles, reaching for the blaze that seemed close enough to swallow her whole. But the fire was not as gentle as her memory promised. Within the logs, faces began to emerge, twisting in the glow. Hollow-eyed, wide-mouthed, teeth gnashing as if gnawed by invisible teeth of flame. The crackle of wood grew into the shriek of voices. The hearth, once a cradle of comfort, gaped wider, turning into a furnace. Smoke twisted upward, not gray, but black, curling into shapes like bony hands that beckoned her inside. Her heart pounded. She pressed her palms closer to the flame, despite the terror, for its warmth kissed her skin and thawed the frost from her bones. Pain mixed with relief, and she thought, if this is fire that devours, let it devour me too. The match hissed lower, the sulfur head consumed, the wood darkening. She bent closer, desperate to steal one last breath of the heat, one last glimpse of the false hearth. Then it was gone. the wall snapped back to lifeless brick, cold and pitiless. The corner was once again only stone and shadow, and the bitter air rushed back into her lungs like knives. Her hands shook as though she had held lightning. She looked at the blackened stub between her fingers, its faint thread of smoke curling up into the night. One match spent, one chance wasted. The bundle at her side seemed smaller already, as though the wood sticks could sense her weakness and were slipping away. She clutched them tighter, pressing them to her chest as if they were treasure. In her mind, the phantom hearth still burned, whispering, mocking. She had glimpsed warmth, and that glimpse was worse than the cold itself. The wind screamed along the street. The dogs had drawn nearer, noses twitching. She heard one whine, the sound long and low, as though it smelled something already dead. Her lips cracked as she whispered to the dark, "Just one more. Perhaps the next one will be kinder." And with trembling fingers, she struck a second flame. The stub of the first match still smoked at her feet, its ash curling like a worm upon the snow. Her hands shook as she fumbled for another. The wind clawed at her fingers, greedy to snuff out what little hope remained. But she pressed the stick to the wall, struck it fast, and it burst into sudden fire. The light grew larger than before, flaring wild, as if eager to prove itself stronger than the last. This flame did not tremble. It writhed like a serpent. She bent closer, her breath shallow, and watched the wall bleed into vision once more. A long table appeared, draped in cloth heavy as bone shroud, embroidered with patterns of ivy and thorn. Candles guttered along its length, each flame bending sideways as if gasping for air. Upon the table lay a feast. Loaves torn open to show their cowed bellies, bowls of steaming broth, fruits glistening with sticky sweetness, yet her eyes fixed on the center, where stood a roasted goose, its skin browned to gold, juices dripping slow and thick. The smell flooded her head. Grease, garlic, herbs. It was the scent of life denied to her, the scent that haunted her belly when it gnawed itself hollow. Then the goose twitched. At first, it was slight, no more than the jerk of muscle cooling. But then its legs shifted, claws scraping against the platter. It rose upright, wobbling upon its roasted limbs, and the knife still skewered into its breast gleamed under candlelight. Its beak opened with a crack, and from within came a voice, thick and gurgling. "Come closer, child. Taste, taste, taste." She staggered back, but hunger chained her to the sight. The goose waddled forward, dripping fat across the cloth, leaving dark stains like spreading wounds. Its eyes that should have been sealed by death, rolled white in their sockets, bulging. "Eat," it croaked. "Eat before I eat you." The knife lodged in its flesh rattled as it moved, ringing like a bell tolling doom. She lifted her hand as if to shield herself, yet her lips parted with longing. For one moment she thought, if it devours me, at least I will know the taste of warmth. The match shrank, hissing down toward her skin. The vision wavered, the table folding inward, collapsing as though swallowed by the earth. The goose lurched once more, snapping its beak toward her. And then, darkness. The flame died. The wall was only stone. The feast was gone. The street smelled only of smoke and filth. No perfume of roasted meat, no sweetness of fruit. The snow under her feet was bare and pitiless, stained only with her blood. Her stomach convulsed with emptiness, her mouth filled with bitter spit. She pressed both hands against her ribs, as though to keep them from caving in. Above her, the night deepened, and the dogs whined again, their hunger echoing her own. 2 matches gone, 2 promises broken, and still the cold gnawed, patient and merciless. Her fingers, stiff as twigs, fumbled along the bundle once more. 2 had perished. 2 lies turned to smoke. She pressed another to the wall, striking with all her trembling might. The sulfur head hissed, caught, and burst into light. This flame was taller, steadier, as if it wished to prove its dominion. Its glow rose up the wall, stretching high, painting the alley with trembling shadows that danced like gaunt specters. Her hollow eyes widened as the bricks dissolved into something vast, something green. Before her towered a tree, so tall its crown seemed to scrape the heavens. Its trunk was black with sap that glistened like tar, roots thick as serpents curling out across the floor. From its branches hung garlands of silver and gold, heavy globes that gleamed like captured moons. Thousands of candles burned upon its boughs, their light flickering with a strange, feverish brightness. The child gasped, for never had she seen such magnificence. The village square at midsummer sometimes held a small pine decked with poor ribbons. But this was a monument, a cathedral of wood and fire. She lifted her hands toward the branches, longing to pluck just one fruit, to cradle just one spark. Then the candles, began to waver. One by one, their flames grew taller, sharper, as though each were a tongue of the same beast. They tore loose from their wicks and shot upward, trailing smoke. She craned her neck to follow them, heart pounding as the tree darkened. The candle soared into the night sky, changing into stars. The firmament filled with new fires, thousands more than before, all wheeling in silence. And then one star fell. It streaked downward in a path of white fire, tearing the heavens open. She clutched her chest, the words spilling from cracked lips. A soul has left this world. That was what the old woman had said once, in whispers near the hearth. Before earth swallowed her bones, every star that fell was a death. Every blaze, a final breath. The child shivered. Was the falling star for her, or for someone she had never known? She looked up again. The tree was no longer radiant. Its branches drooped, blackened, bereft of light. The ornaments dangled like swollen eyes, hollow, dripping with shadow. From deep within the trunk came a sound, creaking, groaning, as though the tree bore the weight of countless corpses. The flame bit her fingers, burning. She gasped and let the match fall. It hissed into the snow, sputtering into darkness. The alley returned, stone, frost, wind. Yet the echo of the falling star lingered above her, a trail seared into her mind. Her heart thudded not with hope, but with dread. 3 matches gone, 3 visions broken, each more cruel than the last. She hugged the bundle to her chest, as though it were her only kin. Her teeth chattered, not only from cold, but from the thought that death was already near, hanging over her like a hawk waiting to strike. And still, the night had not finished with her. The child lingered in silence after the 3rd flame had died. Her breath rattled in her chest, shallow and weak, as if even the air had grown weary of her. Above, the heavens stretched vast and pitiless, stars burning cold like watchful eyes. The memory of the falling star gnawed at her, whispering of endings. Yet her fingers, numb and raw, moved again toward the bundle of wood. She dared not stop. To stop was to let the frost claim her entirely. She drew a 4th match. Its head scraped the wall, and fire bloomed once more. This flame was unlike the others. It burned with steadiness, no flicker, no struggle, as if it had been waiting. Its glow seeped outward, painting the stones in pale gold. And from that glow stepped a figure. The child's eyes widened. The figure was bent with age, clothed in garments that shimmered like cobwebs woven of light. Hair, long and silver, spilled about her shoulders. Her eyes were deep, carrying warmth no fire could mimic. The child whispered a name that cracked her throat. Grandmother. For a moment, the alley melted away. She was no longer in snow, no longer in filth. She was small again, curled against the lap of that woman, listening to tales whispered low while embers died in a hearth. Tales of spirits and saints, of stars and the judgment they foretold. Tales of mercy that seemed, in those days, almost real. The figure bent closer, her shadow falling long across the girl's face. A hand, pale, glowing, reached outward, beckoning. The voice that followed was tender, but beneath its tenderness was gravity, a weight like the toll of a funeral bell. Come to me, child. No hunger, no blows, no night, only rest, only warmth. The girl reached out, fingers trembling, desperate to seize that hand. She longed to bury her face against the folds of her grandmother's dress, to sink into that promise and never emerge. But the flame wavered. Its steady glow faltered. Her grandmother's outline blurred, fading back into the dark. The hand receded. The warmth thinned to nothing. No! The cry tore from her lips, thin as broken glass. She struck her palm against the wall, as though by force she could summon the vision again. But the flame had ended, leaving her with nothing but stone, snow, and the gnawing hunger of night. Her heart thrashed. She pressed the remaining matches against her breast, as though they were blood and soul both. If each flame could give her but a moment with that face, she would gladly burn them all. What need had she for coins or her father's wrath, when here lay the only door to love she had ever known? Her teeth chattered, her body shook, yet her resolve hardened in the pit of her chest. She would not wait. She would not waste another breath in darkness. She lifted the whole bundle and struck them all at once. The bundle flared like a torch, each stick catching the next in a rush of fury. Sparks leapt upward, hissing in the air. And for the first time, the alley was ablaze with brightness. No corner lay hidden. Every crack in the stone, every droplet of blood, every snarl of the prowling dogs was cast into dreadful clarity. The child crouched over the fire, eyes wide, lips parted in awe. It was no longer a match. It was a pyre. The smoke curled thick, wrapping around her like a cloak, carrying scents of resin and sulfur, sharp as knives. And through that brilliance, the figure returned. Her grandmother stepped from the fire, tall now, no longer bent with age. Her silver hair streamed upward like a river of light, and her garments billowed dark, vast as wings. Her eyes glowed with a brilliance that burned to behold. She was no longer the gentle keeper of stories by the hearth. She was something older, greater, something that belonged not to the earth, but to the realm where judgment dwells. The girl stared, trembling, not with fear, but with surrender. Tears coursed down her cracked cheeks as she whispered again, "Grandmother?" The figure spoke, and her voice filled the alley like thunder muffled by velvet. "Child, you have been cast aside by man. The doors of their houses are shut. Their hands are fists, their hearts of stone. They have turned from the cry of the weak. They have left you to perish." The girl nodded, though her lips were numb. She knew these words were true. "But you are not forgotten," the figure continued. "Your pain has been seen. Your blood has marked the snow. Your hunger has been counted. Your tears weigh heavy upon the scales." The air thickened. The dogs cowered, whimpering, pressed low to the ground. The flames bent inward toward the figure, as though the fire itself obeyed her will. "Will you come with me, child?" she asked. "Will you leave behind the lashes of your father, the cruel eyes of strangers, the cold of this earth? Come, and know rest, but know this also: your leaving shall not be without price." The girl stretched out her arms, unthinking. What price could matter when warmth awaited? She longed only for embrace, for arms that would never strike. The figure gathered her close. For one heartbeat, the child felt warmth so pure it seared. Warmth that sank deep into marrow, that filled her hollow chest. And then her vision split. She saw not only the embrace, but also the streets beyond, houses sealed against the night, windows glowing, laughter spilling. She saw them all, and above them, stars shivering. One by one, those stars turned dark, as though smoke from her fire reached heaven itself. The grandmother's voice, gentle and dreadful, whispered in her ear, "They shall bear the weight of your silence." The flame surged high, consuming match and child alike. When dawn crept upon the city, it brought no mercy. The sky was pale as bone, the snow hard as stone, and the bells of the church rang with a hollow sound that carried little warmth. In the alley, beneath the frozen shadow of the wall, lay the child, Her small frame was curled, as though still seeking to keep warm. Her cheeks were touched with a faint blush, her lips shaped in the curve of a smile that no frost could erase. In her hands, blackened stubs of wood clung together, fused by ash and ice. Around her lay the remains of a dozen matches, their smoke long vanished into the void. Passers-by gathered. A merchant on his way to open shop first noticed, halting with a grunt. Soon others came, their voices low, muttering. "She has frozen," one said, shaking his head. "What a pity," sighed another, pulling his cloak tighter. "Such things happen," muttered a third, and moved on. None dared linger. Their eyes slid away from the child's face, for the smile there unnerved them. It was not the grimace of one defeated, nor the slack jaw of one lost to sleep. It was serenity, almost triumph, as though she had left this place not in despair, but in victory. Yet they did not see what lingered above. In the sky, a star guttered and died. Its absence carved a deeper darkness into the firmament. The townsfolk did not raise their eyes. They kept them fixed on earth, on coin, on bread, on their own safe fires. But the heavens bore witness, and in the silence that followed the tolling of bells, a whisper coiled through the air, a voice not heard by the living, but felt by the marrow of stone. They shall bear the weight of her silence. The dogs that had prowled the night slunk away, tails low, as though driven by unseen lash. The snow drifted heavier, covering her small body, weaving her into a shroud of white. By noon, only a faint mound marked the place where she had lain, and by evening, even that mound was gone, swallowed into the earth's indifference. The city forgot, but the forgetting was not complete. At night, in certain windows, when candles burned too low, shadows gathered in corners where they had no place. Some claimed to see the outline of a child, barefooted, holding a small bundle of glowing sticks. Others said that in their dreams, a hand reached out from the dark, not begging, not pleading, but pointing, accusing, eternal. The townsfolk grew uneasy. Doors were bolted earlier, prayers muttered longer. Still, whispers spread of cold fingers brushing across sleepers' cheeks, of breath in the room when no one stood there. And when another star fell from the sky, mothers clutched their children close. Fathers stirred in their beds, unease crawling beneath their skin. The girl was gone, yet not gone. She had departed in fire, but her fire lingered, a mark upon the world, a wound upon the heavens. For those who turned away in her last hour would one day feel the frost she left behind. Years passed, but the city did not grow kinder. The same streets stretched crooked and mean. The same stones drank the blood of the poor. The same shutters barred the wind, but also barred compassion. Yet every winter, when the air sharpened and the snow crept low, unease stirred in the hearts of those who remembered the child who froze with a smile on her lips. At first, it was only rumor. A merchant claimed he had seen her reflection in the window of his shop after dark. Bare feet, tattered dress, a face pale as wax pressed against the glass. He swore her eyes glowed faintly, like embers refusing to die. Another said his firewood pile hissed and smoked as though wet, and when he reached for it, he found the blackened stub of a match among the logs, though none in his house had owned one for years. Children whispered that she walked among them when they dared stray too far at dusk. They said her presence chilled the air, though no wind stirred. They said her hand left frost upon the skin, a mark that did not fade until spring. Mothers hushed them, fathers scolded them, yet the whispers persisted, traveling from hearth to hearth like smoke. The priests spoke uneasily in sermons. They urged the townsfolk to give alms, not out of mercy, but out of fear, for none wished to bear the gaze of the frozen child. They reminded the faithful that stars fall when souls depart, and that too many stars had fallen since that night. But their words fell on ears dulled by coin and comfort. And still, the winters grew harsher. Fires guttered more quickly. Bread spoiled sooner. It was as though the frost itself had grown hungry, feeding on the neglect that had slain one of its own. Those who had seen her last, the merchant, the guardsman, the seamstress who had muttered pity and walked away, met fates whispered about in fearful tones. One was found stiff and cold by his own hearth, though the fire burned high. Another awoke blind, claiming the last thing he saw was a child's hand holding flame. Another vanished in a storm, leaving only footprints that ended in the middle of the street, as if swallowed whole. And every time such tales spread, someone would look skyward. More stars had fallen, carving scars across the black dome of heaven. Thus she lingered, not in flesh, but in omen, not begging now, not pleading, but haunting, a reminder carved in winter's breath, in the trembling of candlelight, in the silence that settled whenever snow began to fall. The city lived on, but under a shadow. Each year, when the nights stretched longest, doors closed earlier, windows were bolted tighter, prayers were whispered quicker. But no lock, no bolt, no prayer could erase the memory of the girl with the matches, who had risen from hunger into something eternal. And when the wind howled at midnight, it was not always the wind. Sometimes it was her. Stories such as this do not exist merely to chill the blood or weigh the heart with sorrow. They endure because they hold up a mirror, forcing us to look at the shape of our own cruelty. The child was not slain by frost alone. She was slain by the hands that did not open, by the eyes that did not meet hers, by the voices that muttered pity yet walked on. The cold was only the tool. Indifference was the executioner. In every town, in every age, there are children who walk barefoot through the snow, sometimes in body, sometimes in spirit. They beg for warmth, not only of fire, but of kindness. When they are ignored, the frost that takes them seeps also into the hearts of those who refused them. What freezes outside becomes what freezes within. The tale whispers a grim truth. Mercy withheld is not neutral. It is a blade turned inward upon a community. A single match could have been spared by any of those who passed her by. A single coin, a single door opened, but none were given. So her death became a curse, her silence an eternal judgment. The lesson, then, is stark and simple. To look away is to choose the frost. To give nothing is to let the stars fall faster from the heavens. But to open one's hand, to share even the smallest flame, is to defy the cold and keep the world from becoming a tomb of indifference. Her story endures not only as warning, but as demand that we do not pass by, heads turned, while another child waits in the snow.